When I was a child, I was abducted in the winter of 1995. I remember lights beaming in my room, and when I looked to my right, there was a being reaching for me. After that situation, I've always felt like I've been being watched.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Debriefed. My name is Chris Ramsey, and today we're going to be reading through a very contentious, controversial, and polarizing topic here. This is known as the Lacerta Files. On December 16th, 1999, a file was posted to some conspiracy theory forums. This file alleged an interaction between a human being, a male from Sweden who remains anonymous, and a reptilian female who goes by the name Lacerta. So the source of the transcript is unknown, the tapes were never found, and the person who interviewed this being was never named. So therefore, we have no actual evidence of this ever happening. But that, folks, won't stop us from reading through this hefty document. This comes in two different files. So you have part one, which was released in 99, and part two, which was then later released in 2000 in April. This has been translated by a person by the name of Christian Filer. So among the varying fantastic claims, one of which being Lacerta says that her species evolved here on Earth millions of years before humans did, and they went deep underground to avoid human expansion and cataclysms. And they also allegedly control hidden underground cities around the world. Now, if all of this sounds a little familiar, that's because David Icke, a controversial figure for many reasons which I won't get into, was fascinated by the topic of reptilian overlords kind of taking over mainstream, which is the monarchy and politicians and celebrities and so forth. So obviously mainstream media takes this, sensationalizes it, and makes us all look like tinfoil hat wearing crazies. But you don't need a tinfoil hat to enjoy a good story. And folks, that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. This hefty document has about 50 pages, half of which are part two, half of which are part one. So I'll try my best to read through as much as I can, but this will probably end up being an intermittent series that we post between other podcasts and investigations. And if this is something that you enjoy, folks, I would just ask you three simple things: like this video, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment below to help out the algorithm and appease the algorithm gods that we so helplessly have to serve here on YouTube. Finding your private and personal information online has gotten easier. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to believe that your personal and private information is being sold to data brokers on the dark web, which is why this video is sponsored by Incogni. Dealing with spam emails and phone calls and texts is bad enough, but once you're on these lists, it doesn't stop there. Sometimes, they can take it a step further. Whether it's creepy DMs or finding out where you live, your personal and private information is pretty much always at risk. But there's good news. You can actually demand that that information be taken off their lists. The bad news is there are hundreds of lists, and Incogni makes that easy. All you have to do is sign in to Incogni and grant them permission to act on your behalf. Then sit back and watch as they reach out to the hundreds of brokers that are selling your private information and demand that it be retracted and taken off the internet. They even have a very easy to understand dashboard which allows you to track exactly where your information has been taken down and what's left to do. So go subscribe to Incogni at incogni.com/area52 and use promo code area52 and you'll save 60% off your yearly subscription. Folks, we paid the bills. Let's get into reading the Lacerta Files. All right, like I said, there is a lot here. This is only half, and the other half is here. These are thick, thick files, baby. Having guests is fun. I do enjoy listening to people and learning from them, especially when they're so much more intelligent than I am and have so much to teach me. But every now and then, nothing beats sitting here in this office with some wild stories and just chopping it up with you guys. So this is a bit of a rare treat for myself right now. I'm enjoying this. I certify that the following is the absolute truth and no work of fiction. These are parts of a transcript of an interview I've made with a non-human and reptilian being in December of 1999. This female being was already in contact with a friend of mine, whose name is given only with the abbreviation EF in the text, since some months. Let me declare that I was all my life a skeptic about UFOs, aliens, and otherworldly things, and I thought that EF tells me just dreams or fictitious stories when he talked with me about his first contacts with non-human being, Lacerta. I was still skeptic when I met this being on December 16th last year in 1999. In that small, warm room in the remote house of my friend near to a town in the south of Sweden, despite the fact that I saw now with my own eyes that she was not human. She has told and shown me so many unbelievable things during that meeting that I can't deny the reality and the truth of her words any longer. This is not another of that wrong UFO papers which claim to tell the truth but tell in fact just fiction. I'm convinced that this transcript contains the only truth, and therefore you should read it. Folks, again, I would just kindly ask you, suspend your disbelief. We know that this is probably going to read as fiction. But check it at the door. Let's have some fun. I talked with her for over 3 hours, so the following transcript shows you only shortened parts of the interview, because she asked me after the interview not to publish everything she had told me already now. The order of the questions in this transcript is not always the same order in which I had asked them, so it may seem sometimes a little bit confusing to you. It was not easy to delete all the important parts she had asked me to delete from the transcript, so I apologize for the maybe unusual order. I'm in the possession of the entire transcript of the interview, 49 pages, with some of my drawings of her body and her equipment, and also some tapes on which I have the full interview. But I will not reveal this before I have permission from her. I will send the shortened form of the still fascinating document to 4 of my reliable friends to Finland, Norway, Germany, and France. And I hope they will translate it into their own language and into other languages. And I hope as many people as possible will be able to read and to understand the transcript. If you receive it, please send it to all your friends via email or make printouts and copy them. Or better yet, talk about it on Debriefed. I certify furthermore that various paranormal abilities of her species like telepathy and telekinesis, including the moving and dancing of my pencil on the table without touching and the flying of an apple around 40 centimeters over her hands, were shown to me during the 3 hours and 6 minutes of meeting, and I'm absolutely sure that these abilities were no tricks. The following is certainly difficult to understand and to believe for someone who hasn't experienced it, but I was really in contact with her mind, and I'm now completely sure that everything she said during the interview is the absolute truth about our world. I'm going to interject here just for a second. This is a very, very fascinating thing that I've pondered a little bit on recently. If my coffee cup decided to start talking to me immediately, like if it grew a mouth and just started talking to me, and told me anything at all, I would believe it. Because this coffee cup just showed me that my reality was in fact, partially at least, a lie. And that this new reality, in the way that it behaves, is now shown itself to me as being the truth. Therefore, everything that this coffee cup is going to relay to me, I will assume is the truth. And if that's what he's saying here, that's kind of what's happening. If I show you an impossibility, I am then more inclined to have you believe that whatever I say is going to be the truth. Your own objective view of reality has now been questioned and replaced by something else, something, more magical and something real. Therefore, you're going to trust whatever is delivering that message is telling you the truth, when in fact that might not be the truth. You might be being psyoped. And I say this with all due respect to everyone who's ever, in their own words, communicated with some type of entity who's shown them images or given them prophetic messages. personally, I would just be cautious with that message because of the example I just gave you. My 2 cents. We continue. Unfortunately, I have read the entire transcript and much more. This very shortened form by myself, I have the strong impression that everything I've written sounds too unbelievable to be true, that everything sounds more like a bad science fiction story from TV or cinema. And I have doubts that anyone will believe my experiences, but they are true, if you believe it or not. I can't expect from you that you believe my simple words without evidence, but I can't give you that evidence. Please read the transcript and think about it, and you will maybe see the truth in this words. So, all right, some lost in translation here. Obviously, this has been translated from a different language, so maybe just forgive the imperfect grammar here. There will be a new meeting between me and her, again, in the same house in Sweden on April 23rd, 2000, and she promised me to give me maybe some evidence of her existence. In the meantime, I collect questions, which I will ask her then. Maybe she gives me permission to reveal more of the missing parts in that transcript and about the coming war. Okay, believe it or not, this makes no real difference, but I hope you will believe. Ole K. That's what he's going by. January 8th, 2000. So, I mean, what is interesting with this is that we do have 25 years of looking into anything. So if there was any type of prophetic or even just precognitive information in here that happened in the last 25 years, we'll be able to confirm or deny that, which should be interesting. So I will be saying question and answer for both Ole, the person questioning, and for Lacerta, the being answering. Question. First of all, who are you? Are you an extraterrestrial species? Or can your origin be found on this planet? Answer. As you can see with your own eyes, I'm not a human being like you, and to be honest, I'm no real mammal, despite my partly mammal-like body features, which are a result of evolution. I'm a female reptile being, belonging to a very old reptilian race. We are the native Terrans, and we live on that planet since millions of years. We are mentioned in your religious writings, like your Christian Bible, and many of the ancient human tribes were aware of our presence and worshipped us as gods. For example, the Egyptians and the Inca, and many other old tribes. Your Christian religion has misunderstood our role in your creation, so we are mentioned as evil serpents in your writings. This is wrong. Your race was genetically engineered by aliens, and we were just more or less passive visitors of the accelerated evolution process. You must know, some of your scientists have already supposed this, that your species has evolved in a naturally completely impossible speed within just 2-3 million years. This is absolutely impossible because evolution is a much slower process if it's natural, but you have not understand this. Your creation was artificial and done by genetic engineering, but not by us, but by an alien species. If you ask me if I'm an extraterrestrial, I must answer no. We are native Terrans. We had and have some colonies in other solar systems, but we originate on this planet. It's in fact our planet, not yours. It was never yours. That's a crazy way to answer that question, to be like, oh, yeah, we're not extraterrestrial. We're from here, but we were here before you. This is our planet. You are invading our planet currently. Question, can you tell me your name? Answer, this is difficult because your human tongue is not able to pronounce it correctly. And a mispronunciation of our names is very offensive for some of my kind. Our language is very different from yours, but my name is, I will try to say it smoother by use of your human letters. Something like... I did my best to mouth that in parcel tongue. Big Harry Potter fan here. Okay, so was this, by the way, could this have been the origin of parcel tongue that they used in Harry Potter? With a very, very strong pronunciation of the sh and k. Okay, so more like sh, sh, sk, sh, k, sk. Trying my best here. We have no forenames like you, but only a single but unique name, which is divided and characterized by the way of speaking, and which is given not to children who have an own children name, but only in a special procedure in the adolescent age at the time of either religious or scientific enlightenment or awareness, as you would call it. I would appreciate it if you don't try to say my real name with your human tongue. Please call me Lacerta. This is the name I generally use when I'm among humans and talk with them. Well, my apologies, Lacerta. I didn't mean to offend your entire ancestry by calling them all, terrible things. Question, how old are you? Answer, we measure the time not like you in astronomical years and in the revolve of the Earth around the sun, because we usually live beneath the surface of the planet. Our time measurement depends on periodically returning cycles in the Earth magnetic field, and according to this, and said with your numbers, I'm today, let me calculate, 57,653 cycles old. I have reached my adult phase and my awareness at 16,337 cycles ago. This is a very important date for us. According to your human timescale, I'm around 28 years old. Question, what is your task? Do you have a job like us? Answer, to say it with your words, I'm a curious student of the social behavior of your species. That's why I'm here to talk to you. That's why I have revealed my nature to EF and now to you. And that's why I give you all that secret information and why I will try to answer all the questions on your many sheets of paper, honestly. I will see how you react, how others of your kind react. There are so many crazies and liars of your kind on this planet who claim to know the truth about us, about UFOs, about aliens, and so on, and some of you believe their lies. Interesting. I wonder if this being is referring to David Icke's work, which was, I think, really popularized in around 2016. So a few years before this happened, which, again, could also point me in the direction of this being a hoax now that somebody's done the heavy lifting on sort of the origin of these reptilians. Maybe someone took that and ran with it. I wonder how far back the reptilian idea goes to, though. I'm not exactly sure of the original, first time we had mentioned these specific reptilian beings. I'm interested to see how your species will react if you make the truth, which I will tell you now, public. I'm sure quite every one of you will refuse to believe my words, because you need to understand if you want to survive the coming years. It sounds like a little bit of a threat. Question. I've read your full statement, which you have given to EF about this, but can you give me now just a short answer? Are UFOs real flying objects piloted by extraterrestrials, or do they belong to your species? Answer. Some observed UFOs, as you call them, belong to us, but most not. Most of the mysterious flying objects in the sky are not technological devices, but mainly misinterpretations of natural phenomena your scientists have not understand, like spontaneous plasma flares in the high atmosphere. Well, that's really interesting, because recently there's been a lot of talk of these plasmoids being the sort of reason for seeing these orbs. But it's interesting that we're saying it's a natural phenomenon. Okay. Nevertheless, some UFOs are real craft belonging either to your own species, especially to your military, or to other alien species, or at last to us. But a minority of sighted craft belong really to us because we are generally very careful with our movements in the atmosphere, and we have special ways to hide our ships. If you read a report about a sighting of a metallic, again, the grammar is off here, so forgive me for for reading it this way, of a metallic, bright gray cigar-shaped cylindrical object with a length of, there are different types, let me say between 20 and 260 of your meters, and if this object had made a very deep humming sound, and if there were 5 bright red lights on the metallic surface of the cigar, one at the top, one in the middle, 2 on the ends, then it's likely that someone of you have seen one of our ships, and this means that it was either partly defect or that someone of us was not careful enough. We have also a very small fleet of disc-shaped craft, but such UFOs belong usually to an alien species. Triangular UFOs belong generally to your own military, but they use foreign technology to build them. If you really want to try to see one of our craft, you should have a look in the skies over the Arctic, the Antarctic, and over inner Asia, especially over the mountains there. Well, that's interesting. It's interesting to say that the triangular craft would be ours, because that seems to be as well. I mean, again, this person could potentially just be borrowing from ufology lore that the TR-3B, which is some type of back-engineered, alien reproduction vehicle that the military made. But that definitely does seem to fit the modern consensus of the triangular craft being more of a immaculate constellation. When we read that document a few months back, they had also mentioned that the triangular ones were of ARV origin. Again, this could all be true, or these could all be LARPs that are piggybacking on one another. The 4chan whistleblower, however, said he never observed any triangular craft, which, of course, if they were surveying the underwater mobile construction unit that was releasing these UFOs into the atmosphere, that was alien tech. They wouldn't have had access to triangular craft. So this all kind of does fit the narrative currently. Question: have you a special symbol or something like that with which we can identify your kind? Answer: we have two major symbols representing our species. One, the more ancient symbol, is a blue serpent with 4 white wings on a black background. The colors have religious meanings for us. The symbol was used for certain parts of my society, but is today very seldom. You humans have copied it very often in your old writings. The other symbol is a mystic being you would call a dragon in the shape of a circle with 7 white stars in the middle. This symbol is much more common today. If you see one of that symbol on a cylindrical craft I've described in my previous answer, or on some underground installation, this thing or place belongs definitely to us, and I would advise you go away from there as soon as possible. Ooh. What's interesting, I want to have a look at something. I bought a book recently about underwater, this craft that came out from underwater, these beings that came out. I think this was in Spain, and there are multiple witnesses who described one of the beings, and one of the beings had a crest, and I do believe there was a serpent on it. Let me go get this real quick. So the book is called UFO Contact from Undersea. It is a vintage book. So it says here they were dressed in a suit of very special brilliance. It was the color of silver and reflected the lights around them. On the suit in the right breast, they had an emblem made up of a serpent in the form of an S, or maybe more like a Z, with rounded corners and a wide X-shaped cross lying down underneath. Could this be related? I don't know, but I do like the idea of having these old books and being able to be like, oh, that looks like this, or, just connecting dots. Question: the 7 stars in the second symbol you've mentioned, do they mean the Pleiades? Bit of a red flag here. Clearly in ufology, Pleiadian star systems, the Pleiadian star system is very popular. Pleiadians are like some benevolent species, highly intelligent. These 7 stars are also pretty much show up in a lot of different ancient civilizations as being the origin of their gods. And so unless this person is familiar with all that, it would be a weird question for a normie to just be like, oh, you mean the Pleiadian star cluster? So for me, that's like a little bit of a thing, but we carry on. Answer: Pleiades? No. Actually, the 7 stars are planets and moons, and they are a symbol of our former 7 colonies in the solar system. The stars are shown in front of a blue background, and the dragon circle means the shape of the Earth. The 7 white stars mean Moon, Mars, Venus, and the 4 moons of Jupiter and Saturn. We had colonized in the past. 2 colonies are no longer in use and abandoned, so 5 stars would be more correct. Question: as you have not allowed me to make photos, what would be very useful to prove your real existence and the truth of this story? Can you describe yourself detailed? Answer: I know that it would be helpful to prove the authenticity of this interview if you can make some photos from me. Otherwise, you humans are very skeptic. That's good for us and for real alien species acting secretly on this planet. So even if you had such photos, many of your kind would say that they are fraud, that I'm just a masked human woman or something like that. That would be very offensive for me. You must understand that I can't give you permission to make photos of me or of my equipment. This has various reasons, which I want not to discuss with you further. But one of the reasons is the keeping up of the secrecy of our existence. Another reason is more religious. Nevertheless, you have permission to make drawings of my look and of my equipment. I can show you later. I can also try to describe myself, but I doubt that others of your kind will be able to imagine my real look just from simple words, because the automatic denial of the existence of reptilian species, and generally of intelligent species other than your own, is part of the programming of your mind. Well, I will try. Okay. Bit of a contradiction here, being like, I'm going to grant you access to interview me so that we can see how your kind reacts to our existence, but also be like, no photos, please, but you can draw me, paint me like one of your French women. Yeah, a bit strange. That's a little strange to allow for one, but not the other. And it also really, really convenient, I must say. Here we go. This is the description. Imagine the body of a normal human woman, and you have at first a good imagination of my body. Like you, I have a head, 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs, and 2 feet, and the proportions of my body are like yours. As I'm female, I also have 2 breasts. Despite our reptile origin, we have started to give milk to our babies during the evolution process. This happened about 30 million years ago, because this is the best thing to keep the young alive. Evolution had done this for your species already in the dinosaur age, and a little bit later, also for ours. That means not that we are now real mammals, but the breasts of us are not as large as those of human women, and the size of them is generally equal for every female of my kind. The external reproduction organs are for both sexes smaller than those of humans, but they are visible and they have the same function as yours, another gift of evolution to our species. I mean, you know, they might be a little smarter and a little older, but it seems like humans got they got something going for them. Okay, get your head out of the gutter. My skin is mainly of a green-beige color, more pale green, and we have some patterns of brown irregular dots, each dot the size of 1 or 2 centimeters, on our skin and in our face. The patterns are different for both sexes, but females have more, especially in the lower body, and in the face. You can see them in my case as 2 lines over the eyebrows crossing my forehead, at my cheek and at my chin. My eyes are a little bit larger than human eyes. For this reason, we can see better in the darkness, and usually dominated from the large black pupils, which are surrounded from a small bright green iris. Males have a dark green iris. The pupil is slit and can change its size from a small black line to a wide open egg-shaped oval. Because our retina is very light sensitive and the pupil must compare this, we have external round ears, but they are smaller and not so curved as yours. But we can hear better because our ears are more sensitive for sonic. We can hear a wider range of sonic. There's a muscle, or lid, which can completely close them. For example, underwater. Our nose is more pointed, and there is a V-shaped curving between the nostrils, which enabled the ancestors to see temperature. We have lost most of this ability, but we can still feel temperature much better with this organ. Our lips are shaped like yours, those of females a little bit larger than those of males, but of a pale brown color, and our teeth are very white and strong, and a little bit longer and sharper than your soft mammal teeth. We have no different hair color like yours, but there is a tradition to color the hairs in different ages, and the original color is, like mine, a greenish brown. Our hairs are thicker and stronger than yours, and they grow very slow. In addition, the head is the only part of our body where we have hairs. All right. I'm having a hard time picturing a reptile with hair, but I suppose that isn't the most insane thing I've heard so far. Our body, arms, and legs are similar in shape and size to yours, but the color is different, green-beige like the face. And there are scale-like structures on the upper legs, over the knee, and upper arms, over the elbow. Our 5 fingers are a little bit longer and thinner than human fingers, and our skin on the palm is plain. So we have no lines like you, but again a combination of scale-like skin structure and of the brown dots. Both sexes have the dots on the palm, and we have no fingerprints like you. If you touch my skin, you will feel that it is smoother than your hairy skin. There are small, sharp horns on the upside of both middle fingers. The fingernails are gray and generally longer than yours. You see that my nails are not so long and round at the top. This is because I'm female. Males have sharp pointed nails with a length of sometimes 5 or 6 of your centimeters. The following feature is very different from your body and part of our reptilian origin. If you touch the backside of my upper body, you will feel a hard, bony line through my clothing. This is not my spine, but a very difficult-shaped external plate structure of skin and tissue following exactly our spine from the head to the hip. There is an extremely high number of nerves and large blood vessels in this structure and in the plates, which are around 2 or 3 centimeters long and very touch-sensitive. This is the reason why we have always problems to sit in chairs with a back like this chair. The main task of these small plates, beside a role in our sexuality, is simply the regulation of our body temperature, and if we sit in natural or artificial sunlight, these plates become more blood-filled and the vessels become wider, and the sun is able to heat up our reptilioid blood, which circulates through the body and through the plates for many degrees, and that gives us a great pleasure. What else is different from your kind? Oh, we have no navel because we were born in a different way to your mammal birth. The other exterior differences from your kind are minor, and I think I must not mention all now because most of them are not visible if we wear clothing. I hope the description of my body was detailed enough. I would advise you to make some drawings. Okay. How bizarre. One thing I will say, and one thing that I do appreciate, whether this is a LARP, a pretend story, or an actual occurrence, is the inclusion of such biological details. We've seen this with the EBO geneticist, where he went into crazy amount of details with not only the body, but the organs and the genetics themselves, the reproductive organs or the lack thereof. I find it very fascinating if you're creating this type of lore that you would include details that otherwise, they're just completely made up, which is kind of cool. So I do appreciate that. Question: what kind of clothing do you generally wear? I suppose this is not the way you dress normally. Answer: no, I wear this human everyday clothing only when I'm among humans. To be honest, it's not very comfortable for me to wear such tight things, and it is always very unusual feeling. If we are in our home, this means our subterranean home, or in our large artificial sun areas, and if we are together with others near to our own name, we are usually naked. Is this shocking for you? When we are in the public and together with many others of our species, we wear very wide and soft clothing made of thin, light stuff. I have told you that many parts of our bodies are very touch-sensitive, mostly the small black plates, so we can't feel comfortable in tight clothing because it can hurt us. Man and woman wear often the same kind of clothing, but the colors are different for the sexes. Interesting. I like that. I think that's cool. Flowy clothing, reptilians wearing flowy clothing. Question: you've said others near to your own name. Do you mean your family? Answer: no, not really. You would call it a family, but with this word you mean only those of your kind which belong genetically together, like father or mother and child. As I've said earlier, we have a very difficult and unique name. Part of the pronunciation of that name is absolute unique, and there is no other being with that same name. But part of this name, the middle part, is pronounced in a way that told the others to which family, I must use the word because you haven't the right one in your vocabulary, you belong. This means not that all in that group are genetically related to you, because these groups are usually very large and contain between 40 and 70 of us. This group includes generally your genetic relations, except one of them had decided to leave this group, and your connection with the father or mother is often the strongest. It would be too difficult for me to explain you now our very old social system, which is very complex, and we would need many hours only for the primary things. But we can meet another time, and I can give you detailed descriptions of all these things. Interesting. You're going to hear me say interesting a lot. And sometimes I mean interesting because it's actually interesting. Sometimes I mean interesting because I'm not buying it. But don't let that deter you from, the fiction. Question, have you a tail like normal reptiles? Answer, do you see one? No, we have no visible tail. If you look at our skeleton, there is only a small rounded bone at the end of our spine, behind the pelvis. This is a useless rudiment of the tail of our ancestors, but it is not visible from the outside. Our embryos have tails during the first months of development, but these tails disappear before we're born. A tail makes only sense for a primitive species, which tries to walk on two legs and must held the balance with the tail. But our skeleton has changed during evolution. Our spine is nearly in the same shape as yours, so we need no tail to stay on 2 feet. Well, reptiles have tails, and they're not walking around on 2 legs. So that doesn't really make sense, does it? Actually, somebody we had on the podcast a long time ago, Jesse, who had a sighting in northern Quebec, maybe I should ask him to read through this. He does study reptiles. Question, you said that you were born in a different way to us. Do you lay eggs? Answer, yes, but not like your birds or primitive reptiles. Actually, the embryo grows in a protein liquid inside the mother's womb. But there is also an egg-shaped but very thin chalk hull around it that fills the whole womb. The embryo inside this hull is completely autark from the mother's body. I don't know what that means. Autark? I think they made a mistake because autarky is like an economic term, unless I'm mistaken. I don't know. It has every substance it needs to develop inside the chalk hull. There's also a cord like your navel cord, which is connected to a point behind the back plates. When the baby is going to be born, the whole egg is pressed through the vagina, covered in a slimy protein substance, and the baby came out of this soft egg after some minutes. These 2 horns on our middle fingers were instinctively used from babies to break through the chalk hull to take their first breath. Our young are not so large as your babies when they were born. They are between 30 and 35 of your centimeters tall. The egg is around 40 centimeters tall. This is because our vagina is smaller than a human one, but we grow to a normal size of 1.60 or 1.80 meters. TMI on the reptilian sex organs, but good to know. Question, what about your body temperature? You've said that you enjoy to lay in the sun. What effect has this on your organism? Answer, we are no mammals, as reptiles, our body temperature depends on the temperature of our surrounding. If you touch my hand, you will maybe feel that it is colder than yours because our normal body temperature is around 30 to 33 degrees centigrade. If we sit in the sun, especially naked with our row of small backplates in the sun, our body temperature can rise for 8 or 9 degrees within minutes. This rise causes a production of many enzymes and hormones in our body, our heart and brain, and every organ becomes more active when we feel then very, very good. You humans only enjoy to be in the sun, but for us, it is the greatest pleasure you can imagine, maybe like your sexual excitement. All right. We also enjoy to swim in very warm water or other liquids to rise our body temperature. If we are for some hours in the shadow, our temperature goes back to 30 to 33 degrees. This can cause no harm to us, but we feel much better in the sun. They become horny sun lizards when exposed to sunlight. And they say artificial sunrooms in the underground, but it's not the same for us in the real sun. Okay. Question, what do you eat? Answer, generally various things like you. Flesh, fruit. Flesh? Who says flesh? Right away, if a reptilian told me I eat flesh, I might have to like actively defend myself. Who says flesh? Just say meat. Generally, various things like you: flesh, fruit, vegetables, special kinds of fungus from subterranean farms, and other things. We can also eat and digest some substances which are poisonous for you. The main difference between you and us is that we must eat flesh because our body needs the proteins. We can't live completely vegetarian like your kind because our digestion would stop working and we would die after some weeks or maybe months without flesh. Many of us eat raw flesh or other things which would be disgusting for you. Personally, I prefer cooked flesh and surface fruits like apples or oranges. Question: can you tell me something about the natural history and evolution of your species? How old is your species? Have you evolved from primitive reptiles as mankind has evolved from apes? Nice segue, by the way. I would also have segued past that. After she said flesh 9 times, I'd be like, are you hungry right now? Can I get you a little sandwich or something? This is more of like a longer answer as well. This is a very long and complex story, and it sounds certainly unbelievable to you, but it's the truth. I will try to explain it in short. Around 65 million years ago, many of our unadvanced ancestors from the dinosaur race died in a global cataclysm. The reason for this destruction was not a natural disaster, an asteroid impact as your scientists believe falsely, but a war between 2 alien groups that took mainly place in the orbit and high atmosphere of your planet. According to our limited knowledge about the early days, this global war was the first alien war on planet Earth, but it was definitely not the last. And a future war is coming soon, while a Cold War, as you call it, between alien groups is ongoing since the last 73 years on your planet. The opponents in this 65 million year old war were 2 advanced alien species, whose both names are again not pronounceable for your tongues. I'm able to say them, but it would hurt your ear if I tell you the names in their original way. One race was humanoid, like your species, but much older, and was from this universe, from a solar system in the star constellation you call Procyon, today in your maps. The other species about which we know not so much was a reptilian species, but they have nothing to do with our own species because they have evolved from local saurians, without exterior influence, except the successful manipulation of our own genes by us. Okay, so 2 races, one humanoid, one reptilian, but they evolved in a more unaided way from their saurian ancestors or dinosaurs. And she says more about that later. The advanced reptilian species came not from this universe, but from how should I explain it to you? Your scientists have not really understood the true nature of the universe because your illogical mind is not able to see the easiest things and relies on wrong mathematics and numbers. This is part of the genetic programming of your kind, to which I will come later. Let me say that you are nearly as far away from the understanding of the universe as you were 500 years ago. That makes sense to me. I feel like we might have even been closer 500 years ago to understanding the true meaning of the universe versus now, because I think now we're able to sort of dissect and study the universe a little bit more, but that brings us nowhere closer to perhaps a deeper spiritual, existence here in this universe. To use a term you will maybe understand, the other species came not from this universe, but from another bubble in the foam of the omniverse. Okay. A bubble in the foam of the omniverse. Cool. I like the idea of the universe as being foam bubbles. You would call it maybe another dimension, but this is not the right word to describe it correctly. By the way, the term dimension is generally wrong in the way that you understand it. The fact you should remember is that advanced species are able to walk between bubbles by use of, as you would call it, quantum technology, and sometimes in special ways only by use of their mind. My own species had also advanced mental abilities in comparison to your species, but we are not able to do the master string / bubble changing without technology. But other species active on this planet are able, and this looks to you like magic as it had to your ancestors. Okay, that's cool. I like the idea of traveling through dimensions. Like, in the scale of evolution, you would have sort of like us being at the bottom of the totem pole. A little bit higher would be perhaps somebody that can manipulate gravity with a craft. Even higher than that is using more technology to now penetrate through these dimensions. And even higher than that would be some type of species which has reached this spiritual apotheosis and who can now travel through dimensions by simply using intention. I mean, that, sounds like very peak evolution to me. Back to our own history. The first species, the humanoids, had reached Earth around 150 years before the reptilians, and they built some colonies on the former continents. There was a large colony on the continent you call Antarctica today, and another one on the continent you call Asia today. These people lived together with animal-like saurians on the planet without problems. Okay, so animal-like saurians being the dinosaurs. When the advanced reptilian species arrived in this system, the humanoid colonists from Procyon tried to communicate peacefully, but they were not successful, and a global war started within months. You must understand that both species were interested in this young planet not for its biology and underdeveloped species, but for only one reason: raw material, especially copper. To understand this reason, you must know that copper is a very important material for some advanced species, even today, because it is, together with some unstable materials, able to produce new stable elements if you induce a high electromagnetic field in the right angle with a high nuclear radiation field to produce an overcrossing of fluctuating fields. The fusion of copper and other elements in such a magnetic radiation field chamber can produce a force field of special nature that is very useful for various technological tasks. If there is a physicist out there that understands what the heck I just said, please leave a detailed comment below. I might otherwise be inclined to use my own personal GPT assistant to help me dissect some of this. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to read this to ChatGPT, see what she says. Does this make sense? And can you please deliver that verdict to me in a way that a 8th grader would understand? So it says, yes, the idea in the document makes some sense, but it's also highly theoretical and not something science has fully proven. It sounds like it's describing a way to change materials and create special force fields using a mix of strong magnetism, radiation, and copper. Copper is important because it might help create new elements. If you blast copper with a strong magnetism and nuclear radiation at just the right angles, you might cause a reaction where the atoms behave in a new way. Okay. Final verdict, the idea isn't impossible, but it's also not confirmed science. Some of it sounds like real physics, while other parts feel theoretical or even sci-fi level speculation. If true, it could be connected to exotic technology, possibly even things like advanced propulsion or force fields. Cool. I like that ChatGPT also has an open mind. That gives me, some hope. But it says, but the base for this is an extremely complex formula you are not able to discover because of the restrictions of your simple mind. Can we stop with the condescending alien language? You don't have to remind us at every turn that we are inferior. Need I remind you of our genetically superior appendages? Also strange to me is that they would be so advanced, so much superior, so much better, but we have the sun. Like, the one thing that gives them the most pleasure in the world is the sun, and they don't bask in it every day. They use artificial suns. To me, that's a bit of a red flag, because the things that we do, human beings, for these types of arousal, some humans will stop at nothing. If it meant coming out from these caverns, so be it. I just find it weird that but maybe we get into that. Maybe the answer in here clarifies that a little bit. Both species wanted to have the copper of planet Earth, and for this reason, they fought a not very long war in space and orbit. The humanoid species seemed to be successful during the first time, but in the last battle, the reptilians decided to use a mighty experimental weapon, a special kind of fusion bomb, which should destroy the life forms on the planet, but should not harm the valuable raw materials and the copper. The bomb was fired from space and detonated at a point of your planet called Middle America today. As it detonated in the ocean, it produced an unpredictable fusion with hydrogen, and the effect was much stronger than the reptilians had expected. A deadly radiation an overproduction of fusion oxygen, a fallout of different elements, and a nuclear winter for nearly 200 years were the results. Most of the humanoids were killed, and the reptilians lost their interest on the planet after some years for, even for us, unknown reasons. Maybe because of the radiation. Planet Earth was on its own again, and the animals on the surface died. By the way, one result of the fusion bomb was the fallout of different elements and the materials created in the burning process, and one of that material was iridium. Your human scientists today see the iridium concentration in the ground as evidence for an asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs. That is not true. But how should you know that? Okay, interesting. I don't know enough about paleontology to confirm or deny that, but I think that's an interesting part of the story. Well, most of the dinosaurs died. Not all in the detonation, but in the bad things which came after the war, especially in the nuclear winter and in the fallout, nearly all dinosaurs and reptilians were dead within the next 20 years. Some of them, especially those in the oceans, were able to survive for the next 200 to 300 years, even in this changed world. But these species also died because the climate had changed. The nuclear winter ended after 200 years, but it was colder on Earth than ever before. Despite the cataclysm, some species were able to survive, like fish, like the sharks, or birds, or little creepy mammals. Your ancestors. As if she called us little creepy mammals. Various reptiles like crocodiles, and there was a special kind of small but advanced dinosaur which had developed together with the last large animal reptilians, like the species you call Tyrannosaurus. This new reptile was walking on two legs and looked a little bit like your reconstruction of an iguanodon. It's originated in this family, but it was smaller, around 1.5 meters tall, with some humanoid features, a changed bone structure, a larger skull and brain, and a hand with a thumb that was able to grab things, a different organism, and digestion. Advanced eyes in the middle of the head, like your eyes, and most important, with a new and better brain structure. This was our direct ancestor. There are theories that the radiation of the bomb took part in the mutations of the organism of this new breed, but this is not proven. Nevertheless, this little humanoid-like dinosaur evolved during the following 30 million years, and I've said earlier, a species need generally more time to evolve than you think if the evolution is not artificially induced, like in your case. These beings were intelligent enough to not die in the next millions of years because they learned to change their behavior. They lived in caves instead of in the cold nature, and they learned to use stones and branches as first tools and used fire as to help warm them, especially to warm their blood, which is very important for our kind to survive. During the next 20 million years, this species was divided by nature into 27 subspecies. Unfortunately, former reptilian species were prone to divide themselves in a more or less illogical way into subspecies during the evolution process. You can clearly see this in the unnecessary high number of animal dinosaur species in earlier times, okay? And there were many, mainly primitive wars between the subspecies for dominance. I mean, no way to disprove that. Well, nature was not very friendly to us, and as far as we know, the 27 subspecies were extincted in primitive wars and in evolution because their organism and mind was not developed enough to survive. And as a main reason, they were not able to change their blood temperature in the right way when the climate changed. 50 million years after the war and after the dinosaurs, only 3, now also technological, advanced reptilian species were remaining on this planet together with all the lower animals. Okay. Through natural and artificial crossbreedings, these 3 species were united to one reptilian species, and through the invention of genetic manipulations, we were able to eliminate the dividing prone genes in our genetic structure. According to our history and belief, this was the time when our final reptilian race, as you see me today, was created by use of genetic engineering. This was around 10 million years ago, and our evolution nearly stopped at that point. Well, actually, there were some minor changes in our look toward a more humanoid and mammal-like appearance during this coming ages, but we have not divided again into subspecies. You see, we are a very old race in comparison to your kind, which was jumping around as small monkey-like animals in the trees at this time while we invented technology, colonized other planets of the system, built large cities on this planet, which disappeared without a trace in the ages, and engineered our own genes while your genes were still those of animals. Again, the condescension is palpable here. You can cut it with a knife. 10 million years ago, the small simians started to grow, and they came down from the trees to the ground. Again, because of the change of the climate, especially on the so-called African continent. But they evolved very slow, as it is normal for a mammal, and if nothing extraordinary had happened to your kind, we wouldn't be able to sit here and talk, because I would sit in front of my comfortable modern house, and you would sit in your cave, clothed with fur, trying to discover the secrets of fire. Or you'd maybe sit in one of our zoos. Wow. But the things had developed differently, and you believe you are the crown of creation, and you can sit in your modern house, and we must hide and live beneath the earth and in remote areas. Around 1.5 million years ago, another alien species arrived on Earth. It was surprisingly the first species since over 60 million years. This would be more surprising for you if you would not know how many different species are here today. The interest of this humanoid species, you call them Elohim today. Elohim? Is it Elohim? Is that like the Anunnaki type deal? So it's a Hebrew word that's like a divine being. Okay, so like an angel or a divine being. I see. You call them Elohim today. Was not the raw material, and the copper, it were to our astonishment the unadvanced ape humanoids. Wow. So the interest wasn't the copper, it was us. Okay. Despite of our presence on this planet, the aliens decided to help the apes to evolve a little bit faster, to serve them in the future as some kind of slave race in coming wars. The fate of your species was not really important for us, but we didn't like the presence of the Elohim on our planet, and they didn't like our presence on their new galactic zoo planet. And so your sixth and seventh creation was the reason for a war between us and them. You can read about that war, for example, partly in the book you call the Bible. In a very strange way of description, the real truth is a very long and difficult story. Should I continue? Yes, but not today. That'll be it for the read-through today. Now, 15 pages we've covered, which means this will probably be a 4-part series in total, maybe 5, maybe 3. But I definitely need to know if you guys want to see more of this. Do you want me to keep reading through it? I will happily read through it if this video reaches its intended audience. And I hope it does, because this stuff just really gets my gears going. In terms of creative thinking, you know, I think it's interesting to think that there were some ancient civilizations living alongside the saurian, animal population. And the fact that humanoids were sort of at war with these reptilians, or these different type of reptilians, and that they evolved next to us while, and then, we get a small glimpse of the Elohim coming in at the end and really using us. And this falls into a lot of the Anunnaki, Nephilim sort of territory as well, where, if I'm not mistaken, they also genetically engineered man and made, just a race of slaves to like mine gold or whatever it was. But it seems like that's falling into this type of lore, and it's kind of coalescing. So I'm really interested to see how many more points of connection we can find once we move forward. And it seems like we're going to get into the heavy stuff real soon. We did cover a lot of the physiology, some of the history, but I would also like to know more about perhaps the provenance, like where did those races come from? What star system are they from? And more importantly, what are the reptilians doing right now? Why aren't they taking over? Are they being stopped or suppressed? I don't know. Very interesting stuff. Maybe you guys have found some connections that I've missed, and I would love to hear that if that was the case. Also, if you want to be engaging with me in different conversations, I'm always on Discord, by the way. If you guys want to join a really cool community of open-minded people who are together with me collectively, learning about all this stuff, some of us for the first time, don't be shy. Don't be a stranger. Come on by to Discord. It's totally free. Links in the description. Thank you all so much for being so supportive on this channel and following me through this incredible journey. I am very grateful and humbled by your presence. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next video. Peace and love.